Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Prof.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
Sure.
Good. All right, so it's already 5 past, so I'll just begin with the program.
It's fine.
And the rest of the attendees will join in as we go ahead. All right.
Thanks.
Okay, so all the speakers are here, so that's fabulous. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining our third Career Talk webinar. My name is Mnguni, and I am the founder of Criminal Justice Empowered, and I'm also a lecturer at UNISA in the Department of Criminology and Security Science. Criminal Justice Empowered is an NPO that focuses on providing support, community, and career guidance to our students and graduates in the School of Criminal Justice, not just in Johannesburg, but nationally. Our mission is to actually be the source of information for anyone who's interested in a career in this field and perhaps has no knowledge about the different kind of careers that actually exist in this field. And these sessions, we've held these webinars for the past 2 years now, and this is our third one. And these sessions have really been very informative and engaging as well. So I'm hoping that this afternoon, this evening will also yield the same results. The focal point of today's discussion is to understand the practicality of criminal justice work in the society, especially the research conducted by these professionals. Of course, the views of the professionals that are in this session today are their views, and this does not actually indicate for everyone who conducts research in this field. Our speakers for this evening are Professor Kines from UCT, Ms. Boleu from University of Free State, Prof. Muthaphuli from UNISA, and Ms. Caluza from PSiRA. There will be a Q&A session after the first 2 speakers, and then there will be another one, the last Q&A session after the last 2 speakers. And unfortunately, I will time these Q&A sessions because I know that a lot of the time, everyone really wants to get their answers and ask questions. But unfortunately, because of time and some of our speakers have other engagements, I will be timing the sessions. But if you do have any other questions that were perhaps not answered in the session, you are more than welcome to email us at criminaljusticeenempowered@gmail.com, and then we will attend to your query. Of course, some students don't hold back. They inbox me on my LinkedIn as well, and I definitely assist where I can. But if the query is directed to any of our speakers specifically, and then I'll ask them, and then I'll relay the message. With that being said, I officially welcome everyone here today. Thank you to our speakers, thank you to our attendees. But without me babbling too much, I officially welcome today's agenda, and I'll just introduce our first speaker. Professor Irvin Kines is an associate professor at the University of Cape Town. He holds a HDE from University of Western Cape. Oh, before I continue, I must reiterate that I will try my best to summarize the bios. Our speakers today truly have an extensive bio, so I'll try my best to summarize everything. All right, Prof also holds an MSc in criminology from the London School of Economics and a PhD in criminology from UCT. He previously served as a police training program manager at the Center of Conflict Resolution, where he was responsible for training police managers. He also served on the board of the Trauma Center for Victims and Violence and Torture. He has been a member of the Committee of Inquiry into Racism in the SAPS. He also served as a member of the Independent Committee of Inquiry into the underlying conditions for the instability and violence in the Western Cape minibus taxi industry. Prof is also a recipient of the United Nations Vienna Civil Society Award from the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime. Prof additionally previously worked as a content advisor for the Portfolio Committee on Police in Parliament. He's also a member of the editorial board for Acta Criminologica, an African Journal of Criminology and Victimology. Lastly, Prof has also published extensively on policing, gang governance, organized violence. Thank you so much, Prof, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Prof will be touching on his research in gang governance, policing, and he'll also be touching on his experience in the SAPS as well. And thank you. Yeah, Prof, please take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and Nokunwawa, and thanks to everybody who's participating in this seminar. I'm very honored that you've asked me to be here this evening. We've got very little time, so I thought that if I could just very briefly share my screen, because the question of advice to anybody who wants to serve in the SAPS. With criminology, you can do much more than just the SAPS. You can go to places that you've never ever been into, depending on your particular field of interest within criminology. And I thought that I would just share with you my own research and how I started getting involved in this criminological inquiry. And let me put this presentation up. I hope you can see my screen. So
yes, I can see it.
I initially just started off as an activist, and I put some pictures in there to show you how things have changed over the last 30 or 40 years. I was one of the old activists that had a strong organizing ability to bring people together to resist apartheid. I was a community organizer. And because the gangs were killing so many people in the area that I'd grown up, I started to organize against the gangs initially. And so I became a mediator. But so the objectives of this presentation was also to help me think about my methodology of talking to you in this particular short period and clarify the ambiguities in my own research methods. So it places my research in context when it comes to gangs and the police in particular. So I was arrested a few times, and that is my mugshot in 1989 when I was arrested. That was the third time I was arrested. And so my entire focus on the police was around corruption, because I could then already determine that the police were selling guns to gangsters. And that was information that were given to me by community members. And I became deeply interested in the role of the police. And that led to my research journey, looking at the police as an institution and how individual officers interface with gangs. And I decided to take that as a route into researching the police and gangs. And so that meant that I had to talk to gangsters and I had to talk to police officers. Of course, you have to get ethics applications for all of that. And that takes you into very different places when you have to meet with police officers and community members and hear what the issues are that affects them. And so you also have to be brave, because you go into areas that you don't normally go to as a young researcher. And so very many sources of information. I then started to become involved in the conflict resolution arena. I worked for the Center for Conflict Resolution as a police trainer. With my criminology background, I was able to train police officers nationally, provincially, internationally. I trained in several different countries, trained police officers how to use conflict resolution to deal with conflict within the communities over a number of years. Fantastic work if you get into the conflict resolution field, because you can work internationally, you can do work for the United Nations. I was sent to Jamaica to look at their gang problem and so forth. And so during the Pagad Wars on the Cape Flats, we were deeply involved with that to try to bring peace between the gangs and the vigilante organization called Pagad. And that was a difficult period because people got shot. I was shot at a few times. And so it's a bit dangerous if you don't do proper preparation and you don't do a proper conflict analysis. But your basic training in criminology helps you with that particular forms of analysis. You don't only need to go into the police officers, into the police. We were able to work with police officers We were able to do early warning system planning with the police. And so you can do quite a lot while doing your own research. And so how do you draw that particular data as a researcher? It's very difficult. You do mediation between gangs, you find information as to who's doing what, who's selling guns to who. You work with community police forums, a very rich source of data as to what's going on in the community and what's going on in the police. Working with structures such as the anti-crime forum, when you train police, when you train neighborhood watchers, when you work with other activists and other academics, and you do formal and informal interviews, of course, obviously, after you've gone through your ethics process at the university. And so I've also trained gang members inside prison and run different projects and programs inside prison with others. And then doing mediation with vigilante organizations. This wasn't a good time to be in the Western Cape with all these wars going on. And so there are some moral dilemmas that will face you, even if you are in the police, or if you're in civil society organizations, or if you're an academic. Howard Becker asks the question, whose side are we on as researchers? You're faced with moral dilemmas. And when the community tells you that they don't talk to gangsters, and the police say they don't talk to gangsters, who are you as an academic in training or as a researcher to go and speak to those individuals? So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult terrain to navigate. And so you don't know what you're going to experience around the next corner. And so do you risk the relationship with the subject that you're interviewing, the gangster, by not shutting up, or the authorities by shutting up? Sometimes you hear information about who has killed whom. What do you do with that information? This throws up a huge moral dilemma for you. And making moral judgments about your research subjects. Do you do this? These are the people that you have to interview in order to get the data that you want in order to write your research. So I do want to say that I started off, my question was, why was the gangs always appearing to beat the police? And I ended up, instead of just looking at gangsters, I looked at the police. And I looked at how the gangs were able to govern what the police does. That was my research, because that particular research question led me into all different directions. And I was able to work with every single part of the police, the gang members, the community members, civil society organizations, and academics around this particular question. So when you're being told about the deeds of who did what and what gangster did what, this has consequences for your access, for your trust, and for what your sources see as loyalties. What do you do with the information as a researcher? And whose story is it really? Is it your story as the researcher, or is it your respondent's story? Huge ethical issues there. And so there's also the question of how gangsters and police officers prevent you from getting access and navigating your way around gatekeepers to the field. And so that distrust lingers. People, if gang members don't know you, if police officers don't know you, they simply don't talk to you. And so you have to find other ways into their particular terrain. And so once you've done your research, your interviews, you go back, and then you have to face people to say what you found. Very difficult, because there's sometimes threats and risks that you have to work with. But I want to raise this question. Howard Becker asked this question, whose side are we on? And he answers that question by saying we are sentimental as researchers, especially when our reason is that we would prefer not to know what is going on. If to know would be to violate some sympathy whose existence we may not even be aware of. So let me say to you, in today's world, there are huge challenges in the criminal justice system. And people who study crime, and like yourselves, there's a huge opportunity to work with people, particularly if you've gained the knowledge and you want to continue that inquiry. You could work in the courts, in the policing system, in the correctional service system, with NGOs or academia, or you could work for international NGOs, because the field of criminology is so wide. If you're able to, after your first degree, specialize in a particular field, there's nothing stopping you. I've been able to work all over the world with different academic institutions, and so do all academics, really, because you asked to help solve problems in your particular field. And that field could be in corrections, in dealing with rehabilitation, reintegration of offenders. You could deal with the police and look at policy prescripts and look at how police officers implement. You could look at organized crime and corruption. So these are all different fields that you could go into, or you could go into the court and also look at the policy prescripts. I've been lucky. I've been very lucky in this respect that I've been able to work with my criminology degree in the Civilian Secretariat for Police. I could work and make policies and policy advice to the policing ministry and to the police itself. Although I did not work for the police as an institution, I could influence what the police were doing through those policy prescripts. And so I also worked and continued the same field when I went to work for Parliament as an advisor to the Portfolio Committee on Police. You can choose where you want to make your mark. It takes a long time, but once you've achieved that particular field and you've achieved the expertise in the field, you can continue working in different parts of the criminal justice system. That is if you're wanting to go into government and make a contribution there. You can also make a significant contribution in civil society organizations. Let's take Corruption Watch, for instance. It's an important organization that plays a significant role in developing policies around corruption and looking at research programs around the world, not only in South Africa. You could go into publishing, into editing, and writing journal articles around the field that you're in. And so I want to indicate that when he asked that question, whose side are we on, he was almost answered by people like Monique Marks when she wrote about young warriors. And listen to a quote there. She says, "I came to believe that in order to do research on social movements in South Africa during highly politicized times, researchers have to take a clear stand on their ideological and political allegiances." She wouldn't have got access if she didn't take a stand. And so today, that context has significantly changed. And so if you're doing research in the field, you must know who you are and where you're coming from in relation to what it is that you're wanting to observe. I want to end that there are other researchers that have done this. There's somebody like Dennis Rogers, who joined the gang in order to find out in Nicaragua what gangs do. He was told to steal women's panties. That was his test, to belong to the gang so that he could understand their modus operandi. Dennis Rogers is a very intrepid researcher. He's done fantastic work in South America around understanding and laying bare what happens in organized gangs. And so he says, as such, joining the gang provided me with an incredible research opportunity. It allowed me extensive access to gang members that led to open and frank interviews that were not clouded by fear on either side. I was able to hear from gang members what it was that had motivated them to become pandereros, and how they perceive themselves, as well as to obtain extensive details about their illegal acts. Now, getting and developing that access in the police, for instance, or in the gangs, it's critical if you're really wanting to do a really good piece of research, but you must make sure that your professors know and understand what it is that you're doing. And so here's another one, Suli Venkatesh, fantastic researcher. He actually became the gang leader for a day, and he didn't even realize what he was busy with because it was illegal. And only when he explained this to his professors did he realize the magnitude of what it was that he was busy with, even though he had kept extensive notes. And so there are a number of questions that will worry you. And one of it is, should we be helping the police or gangs to do it better? If you become involved as a researcher with the police, are you there? We, as criminologists, we're very dangerous people because we advise the state to take actions. For instance, the Prevention of Organized Crime Act. We can make it better as researchers because we see what the gaps are. And so what about our own research agendas and motivation for doing the research? And can we truly do research without getting our hands dirty? And so what should we be doing? So my suggestion is, if all fails, this picture here is a picture of, you'll see Steve Tshwete there, and you'll see Rashid Staghi there, with members of the ANC and Apollo Judan trying to mediate between the gangs and political activists. Our answer is always to return to theory when we're dealing with gangs, and to retain our independence as researchers. Very difficult field to navigate, but I do want to encourage all of you that the world is open. It's for everybody. The world is, you're able to make a fundamental contribution in academia or in the government sector or the private sector. And particularly the private sector is growing, particularly the private security sector. That's an area that we've neglected in research. And that's an area where the private security sector is already saying and inviting people in our particular discipline to consider coming into. I want to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Look at me turning on my camera right on time. Prof,
Sure.
My goodness. I don't know about the attendees, honestly, but for me, it was just a whole lot of information to soak in and receive. I think more than anything, the purpose behind this specific theme for this webinar, guys, is not only to, I just wanted to reiterate that the work that we do and the work that you are about to do, because this doesn't just end with us. Our work as criminal justice professionals and those aspiring to be is more than just sitting behind the desk. Yes, not all of us will be in the field doing empirical work, but what Prof just presented right now is exactly what we do. We are researchers. Even if your job is a 9 to 5 and doing reports and investigating, at the end of the day, you are researching. And I know some maybe first years wondering, okay, how is this information relevant to me? But I'm telling you, this is the right time for you to start thinking about that, because eventually you will get to honors, you will even do your third year, and you will have to do research at some aspect at some point. All of us here have an interest of some sort in criminal justice, whether it's in gang-related police, like Prof just said. All of this information is very well fitting. So Prof, thank you so much. I know Prof has another engagement, but he's willing to just sit in a bit and then just tell the Q&A. So I hope you guys do have questions, because if I have questions, you guys should definitely have questions as well. Thank you so much, Prof, for your presentation. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Londiwe Caluza, and Ms. Londiwe joined the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority in 2017 as an intern and became a junior researcher in 2019. Over the years, she has authored and co-authored numerous research outputs and reports for the authority, and they have definitely been instrumental in formulating policies and regulations for the industry. The latest report she authored looked at the impact of the 4IR on the private security industry, which identified new fields of employment in the private security industry. Ms. Caluza also holds a master's degree in criminology and forensic science, which I think she graduated cum laude. I'm not sure if that's the bachelor's of social work, but she will correct me. Which she both obtained from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She has also done research for UKZN's Language and Development Department, which has also contributed to upgrading of the isiZulu lexicon. Ms. Lundia, thank you so much for joining us today. The floor is yours. Ah, there she is. I think your mic is muted.
Am I audible?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon to Ms. Mnguni and good afternoon to all the attendees. My name is Caluza, and I did not graduate cum laude. I wish I did, but that is not the case. But thank you very, very much. So mine today, is just to talk about my journey of becoming a researcher, where it started like navigating through employment, as well as just advising on how one can pursue a career that is research centered. So I completed my matric in 2011 in Kamana High School. Thereafter, I went to UKZN, where I did my undergraduate degree in social work. Then I did my master's after completing my undergrad. And one of the things that actually pushed me to do my master's degree is the fact that there was no employment for social workers at the time. There were just too many social work graduates. So I then saw it fitting that I should just maybe try specialize within the field of social work so that there can be more opportunities of employment. So hence I then went to do my master's in criminology and forensic sciences with the aim of becoming a forensic social worker. But that did not happen. Today I find myself as a researcher. So one of the things I was asked to talk about is my interest in social work and criminology and how the two merged together. So the interest came about when I was doing my studies in social work. To be honest, I would say that the motive was never for me actually to do social work. I actually had thought that I would do something totally different. My plan was to become actually an animal health technician, but then I found myself in the field of social work. So as time progressed, I developed an interest in forensic social work and in play therapy. So hence I then did my criminology with the aim that I would become a forensic social worker. That didn't happen. So the two merge in the sense that, if I'm not mistaken, criminology and social work, they fall under the humanities department. And even with the theories that are found within the two disciplines, some of them we share. It's just that with social work, it's more of the social issues, like providing aid whenever people need aid, like financial aid through grants and also temporary aid like food vouchers, so that they can be able to sustain themselves when there is a crisis. And I know, like with criminology, it's looking at issues that cause people to like commit crimes. So social work and criminology, they kind of meet, because if a person is hungry, likelihood is that they will go commit a crime so that they can actually have food to eat. So that's how the two merge. And another thing that I found is that my social work background actually has helped me as a researcher, because there are skills that I learned in social work, like for conducting interviews. So there are skills like probing. I know how to probe because it's something that I learned through counseling modules. I know how to do follow-ups, and also to like read a person's energy and body language whenever I'm conducting interviews, right? So that my background in social work has really helped me a lot in that aspect. So the opportunity to work for the authority came about when I was doing my master's. So I think I was doing my second year of my master's, and I just happened to come across an advert online. So they were looking for an intern. I then applied, and it just so happened that I was shortlisted. I was asked to write an article. Thereafter, I was called for an interview, and I then became an intern. So then navigating through to becoming a researcher. After my internship, I was able to have my contract extended. Then the opportunity to become a junior researcher came about. I applied again, and then I got the job. Then there was an opportunity again for a researcher this year. So I applied again, and then I got the job. So my current role as a researcher is basically to conduct research. So I start research from scratch, proposal writing. From proposal writing, I then have to do literature searches. I need to conduct interviews. I need to formulate questionnaires. I need to identify the right people to actually, like my right sample size and the sample people that will be included. I need to write the report. I need to make recommendations to the authority that this is what needs to be done in order to change maybe the regulations, or if certain regulations are working perfectly, to let them know that we need to maybe ensure that we strengthen this the regulation. Also with policy as well, like our research that we do also informs policy. And my advice, okay, for anyone who wants to actually do research, right, as a career. Okay, so number one, I would say be great where you are. So if you are still a student and you have an interest in research, be great. Go to your lecturers, like ask them, how can we collaborate on a certain research topic if you find something very interesting that you'd like to research about. If you are a graduate as well and you're still trying to find employment, create your own employment, like take up that space and create your own employment. You know, some of us are not meant to be employees, but we're meant to be employers. So you have your research background. There are a lot of people who will usually come to me and be like, I'm actually doing research and I'm struggling, because some people have never had the opportunity of having research as a module, but you've had the opportunity. So why not maybe be a research consultant in your area while still looking for employment? And the other thing is, it will, I think, even in your CV, it would make such a great impact when they see that, oh, this person actually has experience because they've created that opportunity for themselves. So be great, take up space. And another thing is be creative as well. I mean, from social work to criminology, you know, so you need to be creative with what you have at hand. So be creative with your qualification. Don't look at, okay, I just want to solely be a researcher for criminology. Maybe you can use your skills for research in a totally different field altogether. You'll survive actually, because you have your background in research, you have your skills in research, and you'll never know, maybe even the knowledge that you've gained from your studies will actually help you when it comes to fulfilling or doing your job. Another thing that we are scared of is sacrifice. Guys, in order for you to get where you want to be, you need to sacrifice. Sometimes you need to work weekends. Sometimes you need to work Sundays. Sometimes you need to just say, I'm going to earn that 300 Rand. I'm just making an example, that 300 Rand so that I can gain that experience. It's hard, but it's valuable at the end. And make the effort to continually grow in your field, right? So if there are short courses, if you see that there are short courses offered online, I mean, now we have free online courses, do them. You like, just do short courses. I would really advise that, so that you actually improve or add on to the skills that you have. And another thing is, be open to possibilities that will allow you to reach your destiny. Just put your foot in wherever, get your foot in the door and run with it. So if it means maybe starting from the bottom, being an intern or whatever, do it. In the long run, best believe it's going to yield you great benefits. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was so good. I have so much to say, as per usual, I do. But I know probably some students are thinking, you know, we want to do all these things. We have the will in us, but there are no doors that are opening. And Ms. Caluza touched on something which is important in my eyes and seems impossible to others when she says, create your own employment. And I know some were thinking, but how? Like, I need experience first. And then she jumped on it and she said, research consultant. And I'm sure some of you guys are like, but it's not like, how do I go about that? It's very much possible because I'm in academia, she's in the authority. And basically there are similarities to what we do in terms of research. Research is standard, and you compiling research in your specific area or organization or whatever project that you're working on, the methods are the same, you know. And yes, not all of us are meant to be employees, not all of us are meant to be employers, and I know it's everyone's situation is different, but those are the things that we need to look into. And also, not so long ago, I had featured someone who was doing certificates to build their CV, just like Ms. Caluza just said, do that. And those are the things that you have to ask yourself. Are you upgrading your skills? Are you upgrading your qualifications? Maybe you don't have money to go and get another degree or a master's, but what about the free certificates on Udemy? What about your time in writing for magazines? Those are also out there, you know, just to put it on your CV. Yes, everyone's time is different, but what are you doing in the meantime? Okay, without, I don't want to blab too much because I'm just a facilitator, but I want to open up the Q&A session. Prof, can you please come back and switch on your camera so we can begin the Q&A session? So what I would like, we have 15 minutes for this Q&A session. And what I'll do is, if you have a question for either of our speakers, kindly raise your hand and then I will unmute you. And I will switch your camera on as well. I'm joking. I'm not going to switch your camera on, but I'll unmute you so your mic can be on so you can ask your questions, right? So please raise your hand so I'm able to see who has a question. Okay.
We've intimidated them all.
Oh, there, I see a hand. Let me just switch on the. Okay, let me unmute. Allow mic. Okay,
Hi,
yes.
good evening. Kutlano, so I recently just graduated like for my undergrad majoring in criminology. However, I just wanted to know what are my options because I didn't necessarily get funding to actually pursue my honors in criminology because that's actually where I wanted to go. But right now, what can I do at this moment? And like our second guest speaker said, Ulondiwe, that like just put your foot in there. So currently I am an intern under marketing though, but I still want to pursue criminology. So what can I do at this point to just make sure that I still get to do what I'm passionate about? Because I am looking at other options, you know, like she said, getting doing the online courses and everything. So I am pursuing that, but I still want to pursue criminology.
Okay, so just to quickly get clear of your question, you're currently studying criminology, or you don't have funding to study?
I don't have funding. So I completed my undergraduate last year. So I only graduated this year in May. So I'm
Okay.
currently not studying. I'm just interning.
Also, you do have the degree?
Yes, I do have the degree. Yes, I do have the degree. I just don't have the honors. So I just wanted to know if can I use that degree to get into the field? Yes, because so far what I've gathered is most companies or people that are looking for like criminologists, they have to have an honors degree. They don't necessarily take you if you just have an undergraduate, unless I'm mistaken.
Okay. All right. Prof,
Can I answer?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Dewey. I liked your talk.
Thank you, Prof.
Let me say to Ms. Kadize, nothing comes easy. And I would suggest, if I were in your place, I would go and knock on the doors of NGOs and do some voluntary work with NGOs. NGOs such as Corruption Watch, depending on your field that you want to specialize in, go and see what you can do to assist the CPF, the FIU, see if they have internships. There's no reason why you can't do that. And I would approach some of these criminal justice institutions by looking at whether, in fact, there's internships available. Because sometimes when you do internships with these, Financial Intelligence Center, for instance, is looking for interns. So you need to be able to put your own feelers out. And you have to, unfortunately, at this stage, put in of your own internal resources in this particular, so that you're connected to the field that you're wanting to be in. And then later on, opportunities will arise. You then just have to position yourselves. Let me just tell you, when I was doing my honors, I came to UCT. I had a huge fight with my supervisor. I left UCT after the first semester. And because I had this fight, I went to do a master's in London. I got a scholarship. I didn't let it put me down, the fact that I had to leave because I had to fight with this particular supervisor. You have to believe in what it is that you're doing and what you're wanting to do, and stick with the goal of, I don't know, for all of us that are in academia, it wasn't easy to get where we are. You have to stick with the cause that you set out to do, and try to be creative in pushing your own particular career agenda. Sorry, I've spoken too much.
Yeah. No, Prof is correct. Just to also say, Kutlano, I only started getting a job specifically in what I studied when I was doing my master's. So that was 4 years or 3.5 years after I had gotten my undergrad. So Prof is right. Sometimes it doesn't start immediately. And yeah, unlike Prof's advice, I didn't go out there and go to, NGOs and put my foot out there. I was technically just waiting for something to land on my lap, which is not the way to go. But yeah, not all of us had an easy journey. Londiwe, do you have anything to add?
Yes. Like I said, you need to sacrifice. I know that it's like education is expensive. I won't lie. Like it's expensive. I just this year did something with UCT for UX research. So it's user experience research. And it was quite pricey, I won't lie. But I had to sacrifice. I had to try put aside funds. I had to borrow as well. So hence I'm saying you need to sacrifice. Where you are, if it's possible, try put aside that money, that like a certain amount of money from the money that you're earning, so that you can at least maybe get enough money to apply and pay for registration. And you never know, when you start something, you'll be so surprised. You never know, maybe you'll get funding from the university. It happened with me. I was so fortunate. I think with my first year or doing my master's, as much as it was not a significant amount, but there was funding for master's graduates. Sorry, for master's students. I applied, and then I got like, I think it was 6,000 rands, and I was so happy. So you'll never know. Maybe the opportunity will just arise. So if you're really passionate about doing your postgrad, I would actually just say apply. You never know. Also apply. Maybe you can get NRF funding, if I'm not mistaken, because I also got NRF funding my second year of my master's study. I was fortunate enough to get NRF funding. So if the passion is there, I'd say sacrifice, go for it, and you'll see things work out.
For sure. Thank you so much. Gutlana, I'll just close your question over here. Unfortunately, I am timing the session and we have like 8 minutes left, and I see that we still have hands. Gutlana, I'd say just email me, please. I just want to see if there aren't any like bursaries or funding that's open. So just email me and then I'll get back to you with that one. All right. I'm moving on to... Yes, I'm moving on to the next person. My eyesight is bad, so I'm squinting, guys. We have, I'm not sure who was first. I think Chilizi. Yes, I'll just unmute you. Please, question. Chilizi. Okay, it's quiet. All right, I'll just take another hand and then he'll come in later. Golden, the floor is yours. I see hands, but no one's asking questions. Golden? Okay. All right.
I think you must try to unmute them, otherwise we can't hear them.
I did, but I'll just move on. Let's take another hand. Irene.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Irene Masemola. I'm studying Bachelor of Arts, majoring in Criminology and Psychology at University of Limpopo. I'm a second-year student. The first time when I enrolled in this course, I didn't know what was I really doing, but now it seems to be interesting, and I've been doing some research, checking my career options, opportunities. So I'm interested in DNA profiling. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that after completing this degree. So I just want some advices. Yeah.
Did you hear her? For my side, wasn't that audible? No. Can you repeat your question again, please? And just maybe try not to speak too close to the mic.
Can you now hear me?
Ah, there we go. Perfect.
Okay, as I was saying, I'm a second-year student. I'm studying Bachelor of Arts, majoring in Criminology and Psychology at University of Limpopo. I'm a second-year student. So I do not know, I really have no idea of what I want to do after obtaining this degree. But currently it seems like I'm interested in DNA profiling. I just don't know if it's going to be possible for me to pursue after getting this degree.
DNA profiling. Prof, do you have any inputs there? Prof, your mic is muted.
I'm sorry about that. I think there would be space for people that have criminology degrees to go into a training program to do DNA profiling. Unfortunately, most of the work around DNA profiling would be on-the-job training. I'm not sure of any university course in this country that does DNA profiling as a course. We have a DNA and forensics program at the University of Cape Town, but we don't go into the details of DNA profiling. Most of it is once you recruit it into either the SAPs or the health departments, forensic labs, then you would have on-the-job training to do that type of thing. But I stand to be corrected on that. And I want to say, even if it's your second year, it's too late for you not to know what you're going to be doing after the degree. You should by now know what you want to do. So thank you.
Yeah. All right. Unfortunately, I have to move on and take other questions. We have Gladys Rasiv. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce your name, unfortunately. Please unmute yourself. There we go. Yes. Sorry, my eyesight is bad, so please forgive me.
No
Yes.
problem.
Yeah.
I'm Can you hear me well?
Someone's mic is on. Okay, please continue.
I'm Rasiva Gajivuya, a student at University of South Africa, doing masters in forensic science and technology. So what I've noted is that most of the students in criminology qualifications, they don't know what to do, or they are waiting for a job. Whereas if they did this qualification, they can do something for themselves. For example, they can be private investigators. If they don't have skills, you don't have to wait for internship. You can get involved in any criminal activities happening in a community. For example, if a criminal does something wrong, you can go there and assist. Then that means you are getting something, you are learning instead of waiting for internship. For example, on my side, I've never worked. I didn't get any internship. But while I was studying, I found out, oh, I can be a private investigator. On my third year, I was starting to investigate crimes, but I don't have practical experience, but I didn't wait for it. I said, oh, academic knowledge is enough for me to start investigating. Even whereas I'm not, by then I was not registered. I started to make myself familiar with the police station, go there, and how can I assist this? How can I remember one day when I was at the police station, they said, this guy, if I was an HR, I would have employed him. He would be a good investigator or detective. By just helping people in my community. Currently, I have my own company, but it's not 100% operational, maybe 50%. When I get case or clients, then I start to investigate. But I'm not yet an expert. But I think soon I will be an expert.
Yes.
For example, now we're living in the fourth industrial revolution. Digital devices are being used as a weapon to commit crimes. That means we in criminal justice qualifications, we can start to learn more about digital devices, Internet of Things and what, and find out how criminals or fraudsters are using these devices to commit crimes. For example, we'll find out, oh, hey, I received a message. They said I've won 50 million. Then they asked me to enter my bank details, my names and number phone. Then 1, 2, 3, my money was gone on my account. So that's another need that we can learn. Instead, not only focusing on the DNA, blood spatters, what we call it. Yeah, where to make the current, if I can pronounce current, what the current activities of crimes that are happening now. As I've said, that now we are on fourth industrial revolution. We have to make sure that our skills make the current errors of what's going on now.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
we have to start with what work. You don't have to wait for someone to employ you. For example, now I'm doing my master's, I've realized that if I continue, soon I will have my company will be operational or known all over Africa, because I get clients all over Africa, but just because I'm not yet an expert, I don't take all pieces. I just have small pieces and work with them. Then
100%.
maybe you'll find out one client will charging them 5,000, depending on the piece of the. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. I think that was more of like advice than it was a question, and definitely for the attendees. So clearly you and I, we need to talk after this, because I think the biggest question here is, how do you start? Like, where do I go? You know, but unfortunately, I have to cut this Q&A session short. Prof has to unfortunately leave us. He has another engagement, like I previously said. But please don't run away yet to the attendees. We do have another Q&A session after the last two speakers. Prof, so much. I thank you so much for joining us. Your presentation and was just honestly very thought-provoking and very knowledgeable as well. Thank you so much. And Prof, please, I might have questions here that I will push forward to you.
You can send to me anytime.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'll also share his presentation once I receive it with the rest of the attendees as well. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us.
Much,
enjoy the rest of your evening.
Kwaba and Londiwe. Thanks everybody for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Ms. Caluza, thank you so much. You please don't go anywhere. We might have more questions for you as well.
No problem.
Yes, all right.
But to comment on the previous question, not question, but the comment. Yes. I just would like to advise the speaker that he needs to be registered with PSiRA. So private investigators must be registered with PSiRA, and I hope he is, because he has to conduct his business in the confines of the PSiRA Act. Yes. So I do hope that as much as he is independent and he's created the opportunity for himself, he is registered with the authority.
He does that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Okay. Let me move on to our next speaker. The next speaker is a colleague of mine, actually very inspiring, one of the people that I actually do look up to. Prof. Muthaphuli is the current acting head at the Department of Corrections Management. He is also an associate professor at the University of South Africa in the School of Criminal Justice. He started as a research assistant, just like me, in the same school in 2007. He has also previously worked as a lecturer, and then he got promoted to senior lecturer, and he obtained his master's degree cum laude. He's actually the first person that I know that in my existence of just being academic who received his degree in cum laude in 2008. And then he also obtained his doctoral degree in penology in 2013. He's also a member of CRIMSA, and he's the member of the International Corrections and Prisons Association. He has so far presented in a number of conferences, both national and international. He's also a member of UNISA's DCS advisory board, which is aimed at improving the knowledge and the skills of the members of the DCS, as well as assisting inmates where there is a need. He has published numerous articles in accredited journals, and is currently editing a book that will be published with tutor towards the end of the year, titled Corrections in South Africa, A Contemporary Perspective. In addition to the many research projects currently underway, include a huge research project which involves the prison reform and inmate population in SADC countries. Prof, thank you so much for taking time out of your
you.
busy schedule. I know how busy this gentleman is. So, Prof, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mnguni. For a while there, I thought we were talking about someone else.
No, it's all you. It's all you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate, and thank you to everyone that has joined. I see there's a good number of people that have sacrificed their time to come and be with us here today. I think it's probably for the better. I see there are still a lot of hands there. Maybe we are going to have a lengthy Q&A session. You will excuse my voice, so I'm still recovering from flu, but I'm sure you can all hear me. Maybe just as a start, I'm going to have a PowerPoint presentation, just like the first colleague who presented, and also maybe just share some thoughts on what I am currently doing and what we currently do here as the department in general. Let me share my screen just before. Maybe just to share with everyone else, when I was asked to come and do this talk, we were sitting at the CRIMSA conference, and Ms. Mnguni said to me, what are you doing on the 14th? I said, I don't plan my life like you do. And suddenly I'm told that, no, we already know what you're going to do. On the 14th at 5, meet us when we are going to have this Criminal Justice Empowered Seminar. And at first, I didn't know what it was all about, but she said to me, go and look at the previous events that we've had. And I find that very interesting. And I'm glad to be part of this this project. And I think from here moving on, I would really like to be a member. Yeah, you must sign me up there.
Yes.
So also a big thank you to the previous two speakers. I think the message that is coming across is that we can all do this. With many roadblocks and many worries that we might be facing, we can all do this. Let me just get into it, Ms. Mnguni. Like I've said, you said to me when I go to give this talk, I must be talking about my career as an academic and also the research that I've been doing in prisons as well, and also the possible collaborations that can come out from all the fields. Remember, within criminal justice, we are talking about various departments like your correctional services, your police, you've got criminologists, you've got security officials out there that are all part of our students. So I find that very interesting because now, since I've joined the UNISA in 2007 as a research assistant, like you said, I also started as a research assistant in 2007. Back then, I think it was just introduced, and the university was not even so sure what exactly they are trying to do with that. So you would come to your office and just sit, not knowing what to even do. But somehow we've ended up pushing our studies in such a way that we had no choice but to complete our master's degrees. We also had no choice but to go as far as doing our PhDs because we had no excuses. We had the library, we've got our offices, we've got all the support that we need next to us. So we had no excuses really not to achieve what the university really wanted us to achieve. So becoming an academia was also, I think, by accident for me because as a research assistant, it just happened that I was studying my master's. Then suddenly there was a call for those people that are registered for master's degree in corrections management, and I was just one of those. So I started there as a research assistant, and suddenly the next thing I know, I'm a lecturer at the university. Because my idea was that I would just do my degrees and go back and look for a job. But it's been years now. Since 2007, I've been sitting in this office. So I've actually become a furniture in this office. So what can I really say about being in academia? In academia, your work is always with you. You do know that we do not have overtime, Ms. Mnguni. Whether it's 6 a.m., whether it's 2 a.m., your work is always there with you. We are here now trying to engage our students because we want what is best for them. However, it is a fulfilling thing because you end up discovering new things. You end up interacting with interesting people like yourselves, like everyone that is attending here today. You also get to travel the world. You do all this with a lot of freedom. I think you've all heard about the so-called academic freedom. You also do all this with a lot of flexibility. Like I've said, you can be working at 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So it really doesn't matter as long as you do what is really needed from you. So personally for me, studying towards my PhD was that really my personal mission because I really want to complete whatever it is that I start. And like many of you, I started at the bottom of my academic ladder as a postgraduate assistant, as I've indicated. And currently I'm the acting head of the department in the Department of Corrections Management in the School of Criminal Justice, which is one of the schools in the College of Law. As you, in case some of you don't know, in the College of Law, we've got two schools. We've got the School of Law and the School of Criminal Justice. So our department is situated in the School of Criminal Justice. We've been doing a lot of research with prisons. In fact, the entire department, which is the Department of Corrections Management, do research in prisons. So that is our daily bread. We've gone so far as having an MOU with the department. In that way, we support them in terms of research, we support them in terms of RPL, we support them in terms of M&D student, that is for the staff members now. Those who are doing M&Ds, we go there and do like your contact sessions with them. We also do support for for some of the inmates as well that are studying with us. You might know that most of the inmates are actually studying, and it just happens that most of them are doing law. Maybe they want to go back to court and prove to the judges that they are actually not guilty. But I'm just joking. But yeah, most of the inmates are studying, and most of them are our students. So I asked my colleagues to also make an input on what really is a good prison research. So I'm going to look at that, and I'm also going to look at how we can work together for us to become good researchers in terms of the criminal justice system. How do we become good researchers in criminal justice? Maybe just a disclaimer before I start, because I'll be using the word prison and prisoner interchangeably, because I believe just for inconvenience, because I know the correctional services has moved on already. They are now using correctional centers instead of prisons. They are now using offenders instead of prisoners. So in this project, I'm going to use prisoners just for inconvenience. That does not take away the much work that has been done by the department to transform from prison to correctional centers. So when I look at the prison research that myself and other colleagues are doing, I think the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, why are we engaging in prison research in the first place? Is it maybe to inform practice? Is it to increase safety? Is it to support the rehabilitation of our offenders? Or is it to reduce operational cost, which is a really important factor? So I've identified three components of what we can say is a good prison research. A good prison research requires a good approach. It requires good logistics. You know that you'll have getting into prison is not an easy task. You need all the approvals. You need to go through all the security ratings that is required in prisons. And also the third one is that the intent to ensure, must have an intention to ensure good outcomes. So in short, prison research requires authenticity, respect, and humility. So one can also ask how we can shape the future of corrections through this prison research. And we need to also ask ourselves what prison research is good for. Is it for policy? Is it for theories? Is it also for challenging assumptions? Because you do know that there are lots of assumptions when it comes to prisons. I know some of you think that these are universities of crime. Some of you think that the prisoners there, they are having it easy. The things are easier for them. But it is those assumptions that we really need to look at and maybe to start challenging the status quo. We also need to look at the wholeness of the prison as an honest intellectual inquiry. We must look at the offender as not as an object, but rather as a human being that that is deserving of the dignity and the respect. And this approach will also extend to practitioners that are also working in those environments as well. That includes your criminologists, that includes your psychologists, that includes your educationists, that includes your social workers as well. So in the past few decades, we've seen a lot of research coming from prison, and it is true that we need all these researches because if you look at prisons, these are the places where our inmates are the vulnerable population and at the highest risk of violence, substance abuse, and also the risk of infectious diseases such as TB, HIV, and to name just a few. However, there's still a huge gap in our knowledge regarding the long-term impact of incarceration. So because of the limited resources that our correctional systems has, it is important that we come on board and also assist in terms of research and also demonstrate that our studies can be implemented within the correctional spheres. We do understand that most prisons remains a place of distress, a place of exhaustion, a place where we can safely say that this is where the most unwelcome citizens of the society are kept. So that is the challenge with most of the prison research, because now you need to be objective as a researcher to also make sure that you remain as objective as possible and not show feelings or reactions to the study participants or your accounts. You must also know that as prison research, you need to get all the approvals, whether it's the university or whether it's the gatekeepers. Obviously, from their side, they also have their ethics committee. So these are some of the benefits that can come out from doing prison research. For inmates, it gives them an opportunity to express their appreciation and to talk to someone who is willing to listen, because most of them regard the officers as their enemies. So this grants them an opportunity for someone who is an outsider to listen to them. And the moment you start engaging with them and they feel that it's safe to work with you, then there is that transition from the status of being an outsider to that of being a semi-insider. So this shift is perceived status leads to more meaningful exchanges with the participants. So because you tend to share the mistrust and skepticism, and there is more scope for in-depth dialogue about life in prison and beyond. Also, prison research requires us to demonstrate to the authorities that the project that we are doing will provide useful knowledge to the management and also to the correctional officials, and also to the studies that is being undertaken, most especially the inmates. In that way, it will make it easier for the officials to allow us and other colleagues who might want to come in the near future to open the doors for us, and also to allow others who might not be willing to accept us, to also open their gates for us. And one of the challenges in communicating findings in terms of the prison research is striking a balance between maintaining the integrity of the data and avoiding the impression that the researcher is overly critical of the system. Yeah. So because this might in the end leads to future reluctance to grant access to prisons for research purposes. So one should not take sides, but rather maintain a balance between the social political values, empathy, and social science research. One should also be able to reconcile the academic world with the prison world, which is not an easy task. And in prison, becoming emotionally attached to one side or the other is not unusual, because there is a lot of denials amongst our inmates. Even after serving 20 years, the person still says, I don't know what I've done. So there are lots of denials. So one can be easily emotionally attached when doing prison research. And also because most of the inmates, like I've indicated, they see the officers as their enemies, and they see them as petty, they see them as antipathetic, and also see them as being unreasonable. So let's go back to how we can all contribute in terms of research in this field. I checked the 2019 report, the Ministerial Task Team report on recruitment, retention, and progression of Black South African academics, and it confirms that there is a lack of specifically African and female South African doctoral graduates, and especially in the fields where participation patterns remains inequitable. So it is up to the university to develop and implement staff transformation plans to address such issues, and it is up to the young academics to take this baton, and also looking at the fact that there's an aging cohort of academics, and really young academics need to stand up and fill in those gaps. So to do this, most of the young academics have pointed that there is lack of support in terms of their career advancement. There's a lack of support in terms of mentorship. And I think initiatives like this one, Ms. Mnguni, is really what young academics or young people, even if it's just young students, needs, so that we understand that what is it that really needs to be done. In terms of research, there are lots of barriers in terms which prevents academics from pursuing their research activities, and also the same barriers that prevents them from pursuing their academic activities also prevents them from career progression. So it is important that we find a balance. So I've listed some 6 ways in which we can mitigate this. Number 1, we must know what is expected of you in terms of research. We do know that as an academic, maybe research is one of your key performance area. So this should not be seen as a threat, but also as a useful instrument to also advance your research career. Number 2, you must work towards identifying and sharpening a research area. You must know that your research will, at the end of the day, have your name on it. It doesn't matter what age or what stage in your life you start. Like I've said, it is important to start. So the earlier, the better. Because we sometimes observe mature age students when they return to campus to do research degree, and they also had to revisit their work that they should have done a long time ago. So the sooner you do this thing, the sooner you can deal with most of the challenges that you face when you are a bit older, because now you now have a family. Now you are expected to go back to do research. You now have a full-time job, and suddenly you are now expected to go back and do your own research. So it's better to start earlier before you have lots of commitments that might also distract you in the whole process. Number 3, you must also start publishing or producing your research in peer-reviewed platforms. You know of the saying that says in academia, they say publish or perish. So it is important that you start publishing from your work. It is important that maybe you start publishing from your thesis or from your from your master's study. This can be done with your supervisor. Which by any means is not a difficult practice, but you can do it to start with your supervisor, to start with your colleagues. Number 4, you must also, I'll skip some of these things because of the time. Number 4, you must also challenge your perfectionism. We do know that most of the researchers are high achievers, and perfectionism is a common trait. This means that not only do students have high expectations of themselves, but such high expectations leads to high levels of anxiety and self-doubt. So research can also trigger that. So you must also allow yourself to learn. You must also give yourself some time to fail in the process, and you must also give yourself room for meaningful criticisms. Number 5, you must also look at the networking. This is an important one because to be successful in academia, in fact, not only in academia, but in any sphere of life, you know, to be able to network. In this way, you will be able to interact with people that are working in your industry. So networking is a mutual beneficial future of all scholarly world, and it is an integral part of it. So developing a networking skill is critical, and there are many situations in which you can facilitate this. Networking is about getting yourself known amongst your peers and putting yourself and your work out there. And you can start doing this by presenting at conferences. Like I've mentioned that we've got CRIMSA conferences, which is a good platform for emerging researchers. And you do not only have to attend, you can also attend and present your work in progress, so that other colleagues or other peers, they can also be able to comment on what you are studying or what you are doing. Number 6, I think one of the speakers also mentioned that you need to look at disciplinary research and cross-disciplinary boundaries. We have to acknowledge the fact that the days of working in silos are ending because of the world that we live in. So we must work cooperatively in a world that on every front, it is increasingly complex and requires a combination of knowledge and skills in order to address these issues. In conclusion, let me just indicate that while there's still progress to be made in our prisons in order to attain the standards laid out, it remains that efforts are being undertaken, at least in the formal discourse and public policies, to improve the situation. In my view, research that can guide these efforts is more useful than research emphasizing on the failures. Because if we focus more on the failures, it is likely to lead more on increased reluctance for collaborations. So if we then produce meaningful research that guides these efforts, we then have to deal with more productive dialogues with our colonial officials, with our Department of Colonial Services, and everyone that is willing to come to the fore, like your NGOs that are working with our inmates, like all the other role players that are working with the criminal justice system as well. Talking about research, a lot has come out from research. You can talk about rehabilitation, going back. You know that in the apartheid era, prisons were meant to lock up those citizens that were not welcome in the societies or that had the so-called voice in terms of what was happening in that time. But the prisons of now have moved from being the prisons of punishment. We are now talking rehabilitation. We now talk of victim offender dialogue. We now talk of restorative justice. We now talk of offender rehabilitation path. We now have more focus on women offenders. We now have a focus on transgender offenders. We now have a focus on LGBTIQ. So instead of just assuming that programs that were designed for men can work for women, we now have to look at the gender differences as well, and also have gender responsive programs that are meant for women. We now have the focus on the mental health, because most of the inmates that are there, you might find that there are mental issues involved as well. So these are the results of research that is being conducted over the years by colleagues. So there is room for improvement in terms of research. There's still a lot to be researched, and we must also remember that for every incarceration, there's also de-incarceration. So whether we like it or not, most, if not all, offenders that are now serving their sentences, they will have to come back to the communities, and and we are the community, and we must look at the fact that what is it that we expect from them when they come back. So Ms. Mnguni, I think I've said a mouthful, and maybe just before I close this, let me just also thank you for this projects, because we need more people to come to join us, to come to the fore as criminal justice practitioners. And it is through these platforms that we can we can share the information with them on what we are really doing. In case there is no one that has really come to the fore to thank you, let me be the first one to do exactly that. Thank you very much for putting criminal justice on the map, and we hope we really achieve what we really need to achieve from these gatherings. A colleague of mine shared this picture with the department this week, and I think it's really relevant to what we are trying to achieve, because we all just want to be remembered for something. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mnguni.
Thank you so much, Prof. Wow, that presentation. Honestly, I think a lot of us actually study the patterns of crime and what causes crime, but not a lot of people look into the prison system and the people that are in there as well. So thank you so much, Prof, for just taking your time to share about research in the correctional sector and offenders, and the kind of research that you can do there as well, because there are things such as reintegration, rehabilitation, and all of those programs that are related to that. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done. Apologies if I seem to be sifting through the program, but I do want to make sure that the attendees do get time to ask your questions. So I'll just move on to our next speaker. Yes, so our last speaker for this evening is Ms. Boleu, and she is a lecturer actually at the University of Free State. Ms. Boleu's research activities developed from her interest and experience in the field of forensic criminology. She's also a lecturer, like I mentioned, at University of Free State. She's an executive member of the University of Free State's Women's Forum, the deputy chairperson for Kids Care Trust governing body, and she is also the founder of University of Free State's Criminology Student Association, also similar to what I'm doing right here. She is particularly interested in the various criminal justice processes and how individuals and communities who engage with are affected by these processes. And then with a clear focus on the judicial system, she aims to engage with communities about how they perceive judges, magistrates, lawyers, and prosecutors in order to understand how the changes in perception of the judiciary and the judicial processes affect the community's involvement in those very processes. Prior to her joining the University of Free State, she was also employed as a diversion worker and safety ambassador coordinator by the National Institute for Crime Prevention and Reintegration of Offenders, also known as NICRO. She has also served as a member of the SAPS Free State Youth Crime Prevention Task Team in 2015. Ms. Mnguni believes in a scholarship that encourages change in her immediate community and greater society as well. She's constantly taking part in conversations such as this, which surround topics beyond her scholarship. As a mother also of a deaf child, she is constantly advocating for deaf awareness through her opinion pieces. And as a Black woman, she writes about her experiences in academia or institution of higher learning as both a student and a staff member. Ms. Mnguni, thank you so much for joining us. I know this webinar is really going in and very much engaging, and people really want to ask questions. So thank you so much for just sticking in. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mnguni, for having me. Yes, this conversation has been interesting so far. I won't be going into so much detail with my presentation. I'm not even going to share the slides. I'm just going to give you guys a taste, or rather tell you about my journey since I completed my undergraduate study. So in third year, and this is where I always start the story, in my third year, we started, we did a course called Youth Misbehavior. And in that course, we were taught about NGOs that work with children at risk of committing a crime or misbehavior. And the NGO that caught my mind was the National Institute of Crime Prevention and Reintegration of Offenders, which is NICRO. So I went on and researched what this NGO is, what it does, what interests me about the services and activities that they have with the surrounding community in the criminal justice system. And I applied for my honors, got into the honors, and in my honors year, I volunteered at the National Institute of Crime Prevention and Reintegration. And there I also found my mentor in this field. So in my volunteering year, in the year that I volunteered, and they didn't necessarily look for volunteers at that time, but I went and I'm like, hey, I'm available and I really want to learn about what this organization does. I am studying criminology and I really want to be an active criminologist once I'm done with my degree. And this NGO seems to fit me very well. And so, yes, I volunteered. In my volunteering year. I learned a lot about non-custodial sentencing, about diversion, adult and child diversion, and the types of services such as group works that they used to do. And at the end of my honors, I completed, and I was invited to be a staff member at NICRO. So I just want to reiterate the words of Londiswa and Prof. Kynes, in that you need to put yourself out there and you need to almost create those opportunities for yourself, because criminology is such a broad and multidisciplined profession that you are valuable in so many different sectors. So that's how I got myself into NICRO. So what did I do at NICRO, right? First of all, I want to also highlight the fact that at that time, NICRO hired social workers. So it was also a question of, like, how am I going to be hired by this organization because I don't have a social work degree, and they do not necessarily recognize me because they've never hired a person with a BA focusing on criminology. So my area manager had to do a lot of convincing to the broader organization. I'm always so grateful for her, because she saw my skills, she saw the value in me and what I can give, and then she said, you're going to be a valuable member of my staff. And so I was hired as a safety ambassador coordinator, and I did diversion work while I was there. So the Safety Ambassador program at NICRO is basically a program where leadership skills, life skills, and skills related to safety in schools are drawn out of leaders in the school. So we worked with 2 schools at the time when I launched this program here in Bloemfontein. so there was an adopter cop that was already working with these two schools for various reasons. So with these two groups, we built skills, like we had children at the schools that were seen as problematic, and then leaders in the schools that were seen as good students, students that are thought to be an example to the rest of the group. And yeah, we mixed there's two types of students in a group, and then we started doing life skills, we started doing leadership skills, we started talking about safety in school and what it looks like, and how do we become ambassadors for safety within our school. And this was primary school students. No, was it high school? High school students. And so for me, that experience was very important, because I could learn how my studies in criminology and understanding how socioeconomic circumstances can lead people to commit petty crime, to just use drugs, and by drugs I mean the basics of marijuana and whatever can be mixed with marijuana, because young people don't necessarily get the purest of substances, and sometimes they be thinking that they're smoking marijuana, and then they end up smoking other things as well mixed together. So this group was amazing, and this work of NECRO, which they still do today, is amazing, because the two different types of scholars started influencing each other, and their behavior started to change, because they understood that at the end of the day, they go home to different kinds of backgrounds. And then when they come to school, it's not necessarily them being bad children, it's them responding to the school environment from a place that they come from a place of anger, frustration, hunger, neediness. So we did that work for Safety Ambassador. So we went and also simply did awareness around the types of crimes, the types of misbehavior that happens in school, what schools can do also to kind of prevent misbehavior from going over the line, from a little fight in class to gangs coming together and fighting against each other after school and losing a child because the other gang from the other school came and murdered the child in front of the teacher. How do we handle that? How do we deal with it? Why do these gangs appear? What is the need for identity that these young people have, and how do we take our kids and make sure that they don't follow that culture? So that was basically what I did. A lot of it was very scary, and a lot of it was very real, for lack of a better word. So I enjoyed this work at NECRO, and it spoke a lot about all of my undergraduate modules and all of my honors modules. The other work I did at NECRO was diversion. I did a lot of diversion work. So basically the court refers people to NECRO for diversion, alternative sentencing. And you get a client, you do an assessment of needs, and you determine what kind of intervention that the client needs in order for them to not reoffend, right? Well, as best as possible. And so I did that. I had many clients. Most of my clients were adult diversion clients, and petty crimes, substance misuse, those kind of cases. So my work at NECRO is actually what inspired my research, or what inspires my research till this day. Before I worked at NECRO, I had many questions in terms of what am I going to do with my degree? And because I'm such a community person, I always want to be able to say, whatever I'm doing actually matters to the people around me, to the society around me, changes something, has some sort of impact. So whatever research I do, whatever academic project I take on needs to speak to something that can be changed in the future. So again, I was hired at NECRO. I was this alien who didn't have a social work degree. So what do criminologists do? What are the requirements for a criminologist to actually even be in our space? Was a lot of questions that I got at the time, right? And what are the skills? What is the knowledge that criminologists had? That was what I was asked all the time. And so when I got an opportunity to come into academia, I got actually a what do you call it? An NGAP position here at the university. And so my research naturally went back into what does the criminal justice system see criminologists as? What do they perceive us as? What do they perceive the skills that we have? What do they need from criminologists as expert witnesses, as experts in the entire criminal justice system? So I went on a mission, I went on a mission to discover the legal identity of a criminologist within the criminal justice system. And I focused on the court because that's where I was working in terms of diversion. And there's a lot of research on pre-sentence report, victim impact statements, what it should look like, the standardization of such reports, and what criminologists can speak to and cannot speak to. But how do we function within that criminal justice system as members, as role players of that criminal justice system that are not recognized only by the profession or the subfield, but by all the other professions that are within the criminal justice system? So that's where my research lies, and that's where my research still lies. One other thing that I am passionate about is that my students currently understand what they can do with their degrees, something that I didn't have in my undergraduate experience, and I'll be done now, is the light, to be told these are the possible careers, these are the possible sectors that you guys can work in, and how do I apply for a job in SAPS, corrections, an NGO, what is my value there, what can I do with my honors, with just my BA, and so I established the Criminology Student Association so that these discussions can happen, so that they can have practical experience right now with each other, and with, of course, guidance from us as the department, and open the opportunity up from other role players or other departments to come to our students and say, this is where you can come. If we need to recruit, you can recruit from, criminology students, and this is why we would want to recruit you, and these are the requirements, this is what we're expecting from you, and the skills that we're expecting from you as a students when you come into our organization. So that's why we have the Criminology Student Association. And another thing that I find to be very important is that we always need to almost transfer our research into casual communication, for lack of a better word. So a lot of the time I want my results, you finish your thesis and you're like, yeah, I'm done with it, I don't want to write it again. Or if you do write about it, it will be in an academic journal and then you leave it there. That is important. You should do that with your research. However, you should also take that research, write for me an opinion piece and say, I did this research, this is what these people think of me, and this is what people think about my research, but I want you to, as a layperson, as a community member, as somebody that is not an academic, to understand what my research means and where my research should go. As a first-year student who is still, grappling with the jargon of research, this is what is happening in my field. So I'm an advocate for opinion pieces, and I'm an advocate of turning your research or academia into something that is relatable and understandable by the fuller community and the younger scholars as well. I'm going to end it there, and thank you so much, Nwaba, for having us and for having the speakers. I am enlightened and encouraged actually by everything that I've heard tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mnguni. Okay, that I liked it because it was straight to the point, and I also love that you also touched on Necro as well. A lot of the time, the students wonder what organizations are out there, and then when they do get the names, they then ask, what do we do? What do they do in those organizations? So I'm glad that you also touched on that as well. Prof, please avail yourself. We're in for the Q&A session. However, may I kindly request that we just address any questions that are for Ukilebogile right now. And then after that, we'll take all the questions that are for you. To the attendees, I'm opening the floor. Once again, guys, I am timing the session, unfortunately. So yes, I open the floor to any questions for our speakers. And when you just have a question, just raise your hand and then unmute your mic, and then you may ask your question. Okay, I see you guys are still chilling for now. No questions. Oh, there we go. Okay, Chilisi has a question. Please, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Mnguni, and all the presenters for the wonderful presentations and wonderful webinar. So my question, it was supposed to be directed to Prof. Ivan. However, I trust that the panel, they will also assist me with the advice. So the question that I have is for advice on to a private researcher. Let me say I'm a private researcher. I want to conduct a research. This question was focusing on the high risk research, like what Prof. Ivan was talking about researching about gangs and drug dealers. So the questions that I want to, the advice that I need is about the stakeholders when one want to conduct such kind of research. Who are the stakeholders that one should focus on to consult, to first engage with before you go to the field? And then regarding the gatekeepers, we know that obviously it will be in the field, in the cycle of drug dealers and those criminals. Who are the gatekeepers for when you need to collect data from those people, from the gangsters or drug dealers? And another things about the ethical clearance. Do we need ethical clearance, and where do we get it if I'm a private researcher?
That's a good question. Prof?
Okay. In terms of doing research with gangs, I think it will depend on where those gang members are. For example, if the gang members are in prison, obviously you will still need to go through all the processes to apply for ethical clearance through their ethics research committee. Then you get approval. So if they are not aligned to any institution and they are just on the streets out there, I'm not sure how that one works, because you will have to go look for them, so to say. You will have to go look for them because they are not. There's no gatekeeper. If you want to do research about me and my conditions at home, you come to me, and that's where you can get the information. But if now I'm a UNISA employee, then you obviously have to, and you want to ask about UNISA stuff, then you have to go through the UNISA research ethics committees for approval. So I think it will depend on where those gang members are. Like I've said, if they are in prison, then you will need to go via the Department of Criminal Services.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that is clear.
Yeah. Chilitsi?
Yes, thank you, Prof. It's very clear. And the issue of ethical clearance, is it what are the procedures in that case, if there's certain formal procedures that one should follow?
Okay, in terms of ethical clearance, remember it will be up to what your study is going to deal with. For example, it might just be a desktop study. Obviously, the ethical clearance won't be that hectic as compared to a study that is going to involve human participants. If you are going to involve inmates, for example, obviously they will want to check your proposal. They will want to check your if you are going to, depending on your methodology, if you are going to do interviews, they'll want to first have a look at the interview questions. If you are going to do a questionnaire, they will first want to have a look at the questionnaire before they can grant you the approval. So it will depend on the type of study you want to conduct and the methodology. So if you want to interview, if your study involves human participant, so it might be a bit lengthy before you can get the ethical approval. But if it's just your desktop, then it is easier.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Thanks, Chilitsi, for your question. I will take another question for the sake of time. If anyone has a question posed to Gilebgele, please, the floor is yours. Okay, I see no hands raised. Okay. I'll take it as the speaker's presentation was straight to the point.
Straightforward.
Yeah, that's what we say in our presentations in conferences. If you get no questions, then your presentation
should
was
be
clearly
happy.
straight to the point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Nogunaba. Thank you, Prof. Pumudzo.
Thank you very much,
I'm
Clementine.
going to bounce now, and
Yes.
all the best to everybody. Really, I think the speakers all can say that there is a journey.
Yeah, for sure.
And some of us are still on it, some of us are at the end of it, but just walk your walk and do your best. And I mean, you already have Miss Mnguni, and she's already doing so much to help you out. I think you should just be very, very grateful for her. And thank you so much for the wonderful work that you are doing. Well done. Honestly, I think this is a platform that a lot of us would have wanted to have, but grateful that the next generation already does.
For sure.
Thank you so much. Sure. Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mnguni.
All right.
Like
Okay, I'm officially I see that we don't have any hands raised, so unfortunately I will have to close the session now, but I'll do the official closing. So thank you so much for tuning in to the end. I hope that the webinar was informative, and it does share a bit of information about the research aspect of criminal justice, and where that can take you as well, you know, as a student, as a graduate as well. I also wanted to note the importance of planning your career trajectory. At this very moment, you know, all of us are interested in something. So that's our starting point. And, you know, as unemployment is one thing, that's a whole pandemic on its own. And unfortunately, it is out of our control. But your personal development is all on you. You need to take the initiative. Even if you're not sure about, you know, you did have some questions here. People are like, we're not sure. This is the first step of you reaching out and putting yourself in platforms that create such environments for you to ask questions. Also, LinkedIn is your friend. I know in the first session, a lot of you guys had questions to ask. Unfortunately, we couldn't get through all the questions, but you need to also network. LinkedIn is your friend. Reach out, ask questions, and don't take it personally when some of these professionals don't answer you. Also, make sure that you structure your questions well, get straight to the point as well. You know, unfortunately, these are busy people. But those that have reached out to me, they can testify that, you know, I do try my best to answer all the messages that come my way. Besides that, I wish this discussion was truly longer, but unfortunately, you know, we do have to nip it at a certain point. There's always a lot to talk about. So for future references, please, I am on LinkedIn. You guys can definitely message me there. Or if you have something more lengthy to talk about, you may email us at criminaljusticeempowered@gmail.com for any queries you may have. And don't forget, please be creative. The job market is very competitive. And remember that everyone has to start somewhere, all right? It is a process, and I think we can all agree on that as well. A final word, all the best with your studies, and to our graduates that are still in the job hunting process, all the best on that as well. To our speakers, Professor Kindness, Ms. Caluza, Prof. Muthaphuli, and Ms. Boleu, thank you so much. Boleu, sorry, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. That is all from me. Keep well and keep safe. I will share all the information and the presentations that were shared here as well, and the recording as well. Thank you so much for taking time of your schedule. I will see you guys next year. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mnguni. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye, everybody.